Have you ever felt like the world is spiraling out of control? That the news headlines are getting more bizarre and frightening by the day? You're not alone. In fact, a mystic from the 19th century named Marie-Julie Jahenny predicted this exact feeling of unease and the events causing it. Jahenny's visions describe a world eerily similar to ours, full of conflict, natural disasters, and a crisis of faith. But here's the thing. She also saw a way through the chaos. In this video, we'll explore how her predictions are unfolding now and what they mean for you and your loved ones. Are you prepared for what comes next? You might be surprised to learn about a little-known mystic who predicted America's current troubles over 150 years ago. Her name was Marie-Julie Jahenny, and her extraordinary visions have been largely forgotten by the world until now. Born in 1850 in a small village in Brittany, France, Marie-Julie Jahenny was a simple peasant girl with no formal education. But from a young age, she displayed remarkable spiritual gifts that would soon captivate those around her. At just 23 years old, Jahenny received the stigmata, the miraculous appearance of wounds matching those of Christ's crucifixion. This was just the beginning of her supernatural experiences. For decades, Jahenny's prophecies were dismissed by skeptics and hidden away by the Catholic Church. Many found her visions too terrifying to believe. But as world events have unfolded, more and more people are taking a second look at this forgotten prophetess. Jahenny's stigmata baffled the doctors who examined her. The wounds would open and bleed profusely every Friday, yet showed no signs of infection. Even more incredibly, they would completely heal by Sunday, only to reopen the following week. This cycle continued for an astonishing 68 years until her death in 1941. But the stigmata was just one of Jahenny's supernatural abilities. Eyewitnesses reported seeing her levitate during intense prayer sessions, sometimes hovering several feet off the ground. Others claimed she could read hearts, revealing people's unspoken thoughts and hidden sins. Perhaps most remarkably, Jahenny was said to survive for years on nothing but the Eucharist, going without food or water for long periods. Miraculous healings were frequently attributed to Jahenny's intercession. The blind reportedly regained their sight, the lame walked again, and even terminal illnesses vanished after she prayed for the afflicted. These inexplicable cures drew pilgrims from across France and beyond, all seeking her blessing. As word of her gifts spread, people began to take notice of Jahenny's prophecies. But what could this humble woman possibly have seen in America's future? Her visions spanned centuries and continents, describing events that seemed impossible in her time. You might be skeptical about prophecy, but Jahenny's track record is hard to ignore. Did you know she accurately predicted both world wars decades before they happened? In 1881, she foresaw a great war that would engulf Europe, describing trench warfare and even the use of poison gas. She went on to predict a second, even more destructive conflict that would follow about 20 years later. Jahenny's visions didn't stop there. She described future weapons of mass destruction, including flying balls of fire that could destroy entire cities, an eerily accurate description of atomic bombs. She even predicted the rise of communism and the persecution of Christians in Russia, long before the Bolshevik Revolution. But her most chilling prophecies were reserved for the future of America. Jahenny saw a time when the United States would abandon its Christian roots, leading to moral decay and social upheaval. She described a period of great confusion in the church, with many falling away from the faith. Does this sound familiar? Jahenny's predictions for America go far beyond general warnings. She describes specific events and changes that are now unfolding before our eyes. From natural disasters to political turmoil, her visions paint a vivid picture of a nation in crisis. But her visions of America's future are even more chilling than what we've seen so far. As we delve deeper into Jahenny's prophecies, you'll be shocked at how accurately she described the challenges facing our nation today. Are we living through the time she foresaw? And if so, What does that mean for our future? While Jahenny's predictions about world wars were shocking, her visions for America's future are truly terrifying. Did you know she foresaw a time when mothers would become indifferent to their own children? The details of this prophecy and its modern parallels will leave you stunned. Marie-Julie Jahenny's visions of America's future paint a grim picture of a society in crisis. She predicted a time when the very fabric of American society would begin to unravel with moral decay and social upheaval tearing at the seams of our nation. What's truly chilling is how accurately her predictions seem to be playing out right before our eyes. One of Jahenny's most disturbing prophecies was her vision of an era of sin that would begin on December 17, 1881. She foresaw a time when many mothers would become indifferent to their innocent children, a concept that seemed unthinkable in her 19th century world. But fast forward to the 1960s, and we see this prophecy taking shape. Several European countries began allowing abortion, marking a shift in societal values that Jahenny had warned about nearly a century earlier. But the moral decline Jahenny predicted isn't limited to family values. Look at the state of crime in America today. Recent statistics show a significant rise in crime rates across the United States, with violent crime increasing by 5.6% in 2021 compared to the previous year. This surge in lawlessness reflects a broader trend of societal unrest that aligns eerily well with Jahenny's warnings about societal collapse. Political division, another hallmark of Jahenny's visions, has reached alarming levels in modern America. A 2022 Pew Research study found that a staggering 73% of Americans believe the country is more divided than in the past. This deep-seated polarization mirrors Jahenny's predictions of societal fragmentation and moral decay, as people increasingly turn against one another. Perhaps most concerning is the decline of traditional values and faith in America, a trend that Jahenny explicitly warned about. A 2021 Gallup poll revealed that only 47% of Americans now identify as members of a church, synagogue, or mosque, down from 70% in 1999. This dramatic shift away from religious affiliation is precisely what Jahenny foresaw, a time when many would abandon their faith, leading to dire consequences for society as a whole. Jahenny's visions didn't just describe these problems, they also warned of the consequences if America didn't change course. She predicted that this moral decay and abandonment of faith would lead to civil unrest and societal breakdown on a scale never before seen. Her prophecies describe a future where people would turn against each other, resulting in chaos and anarchy that would shake the very foundations of our nation. So, the question we must ask ourselves is this: are we already living in the era of sin that Jahenny spoke of back in 1881? The evidence is certainly mounting, from the erosion of family values to the rise in crime, from political polarization to the decline in religious affiliation. All these signs point to a society in crisis, just as Jahenny predicted. But here's the most chilling part. According to Jahenny, this is just the beginning. If her prophecies continue to unfold as they have been, America could be facing even darker times ahead. The moral decay and societal unrest we're witnessing now may be just the first warning signs of a much larger crisis looming on the horizon. As we delve deeper into Jahenny's prophecies for America, you'll discover predictions that are even more shocking and specific. From natural disasters to political upheavals, from religious persecution to cosmic events, Jahenny's visions paint a vivid and terrifying picture of what may lie ahead for our nation. But this is just the beginning of her chilling prophecies for America. What other warnings did this 19th century mystic leave for our modern world? And more importantly, is there still time to change course? The answers may surprise you, and they could change the way you see the world forever. As if America's moral decay wasn't terrifying enough, Jahenny's visions of nature's wrath will send chills down your spine. What if the earth itself turns against us? Brace yourself for the shocking natural disasters she claimed would ravage our world, and the eerie similarities to recent events that suggest her predictions are already unfolding. Marie-Julie Jahenny's prophecies didn't just stop at social and moral decline. She foresaw a time when nature itself would unleash its fury on an unprecedented scale. Her visions described a world racked by extreme weather events and geological upheavals that would shake the very foundations of our civilization. In recent years, America has experienced a surge of natural disasters that seem to align chillingly with Jahenny's predictions. The 2023 California floods serve as a stark example. Record-breaking rainfall led to devastating floods and mudslides, causing widespread destruction and chaos. This extreme weather event mirrors Jahenny's warnings of violent storms that would terrify people and cause widespread damage. But it's not just floods that have plagued America. Unprecedented hurricanes and wildfires have also ravaged various regions, leaving destruction in their wake. These disasters echo Jahenny's visions of hurricanes and floods that would devastate everything in their path. The increasing frequency and intensity of these events raise a troubling question. Are we witnessing the fulfillment of Jahenny's prophecies? Scientific data seems to support this unsettling possibility. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, warns that climate change is likely to lead to more frequent and severe weather events in the coming years. Rising sea temperatures could result in more intense hurricanes and flooding, especially in coastal areas. This scientific prediction aligns eerily well with Jahenny's visions of nature's intensifying wrath. But Jahenny's prophecies go beyond just storms and floods. She described earthquakes of such intensity that entire cities would be destroyed. These seismic events would open massive cracks in the ground and topple buildings, creating scenes of devastation beyond anything we've experienced in modern times. While America hasn't yet faced earthquakes of this magnitude, the increasing geological activity around the world makes one wonder, is it only a matter of time? Perhaps most chilling is Jahenny's prediction of a rain of blood that would last for 7 weeks. While this might sound like something out of a horror movie, it's worth noting that in recent years we've witnessed a number of unusual natural phenomena, from red tides to dust storms that turn the sky blood red. These events make us question whether Jahenny's vision could manifest in ways we haven't yet imagined. So which regions did Jahenny say would be hit hardest, while her prophecies often focused on her? Native France, the global nature of her visions, suggests that no area would be completely safe. She specifically mentioned cities being destroyed by earthquakes and swallowed up, a terrifying prospect that could potentially apply to any seismically active region around the world. Speaking of France, Jahenny's predictions for her homeland were particularly dire. She foresaw earthquakes that would destroy entire cities, quite literally swallowing them into the earth. While France hasn't experienced such catastrophic events yet, the increasing frequency of earthquakes in regions not typically associated with seismic activity has raised concerns worldwide. Could these be the early tremors of the devastation Jahenny predicted? As we grapple with the implications of Jahenny's prophecies and the mounting evidence of climate change, one thing becomes clear. The world as we know it is changing. The natural disasters we're experiencing today might just be the beginning of a new era of environmental upheaval. But as terrifying as these predictions are, they're only one piece of the puzzle Jahenny saw for our future. Nature's fury, as devastating as it may be, is just one part of the coming chaos Jahenny envisioned. As we delve deeper into her prophecies, we'll uncover even more shocking predictions that paint a picture of a world on the brink of transformation. What other trials lie ahead for humanity? And more importantly, is there any hope for survival in the face of such overwhelming challenges? The answers may surprise you, and they could change everything you thought you knew about our future. Jahenny's prophecies don't just stop at natural disasters. She foresaw a time when America would be torn apart from within, plunged into a civil war unlike any in history. As unbelievable as it sounds, recent events suggest her predictions might be coming true right before our eyes. What exactly did Jahenny see in America's future, and how close are we to this terrifying reality? Marie-Julie Jahenny's visions of civil unrest paint a chilling picture of a society on the brink of collapse. She predicted a time when people would fight against each other, not just between countries, but within their own nations. This internal strife would lead to a civil war characterized by chaos and anarchy, tearing apart the fabric of society. Jahenny described scenes of revolt with crowds protesting and confronting their governments, resulting in the collapse of law and social order. She warned that distrust and betrayal would lead to violent actions among citizens, creating a nightmare scenario where neighbor turns against neighbor. When we look at recent events in America, it's hard not to see echoes of Jahenny's prophecies. The past few years have seen a surge in protests, riots, and political violence across the country. From the racial justice protests of 2020 to the storming of the U.S. Capitol in 2021, we've witnessed levels of civil unrest that many thought impossible in modern America. But it's not just isolated incidents that align with Jahenny's visions. There's a growing sense of distrust and division permeating American society. A recent Pew Research study found that 64% of Americans believe their trust in each other has been shrinking. This erosion of social cohesion is exactly what Jahenny warned would precede widespread civil unrest. Even more alarming is the growing distrust in institutions. A 2022 Gallup poll revealed that Americans' confidence in major institutions has hit a new low, with an average of just 27% expressing a great deal or quite a lot of confidence in 14 key institutions. This widespread skepticism towards government, media, and other pillars of society creates fertile ground for the kind of societal breakdown Jahenny foresaw. Jahenny's prophecies went beyond just describing the unrest. She warned that governments would lose control, leading to a situation where ordinary citizens would turn against one another. She saw scenes of looting and widespread fear, with conflicts occurring within cities, making the streets dangerous and forcing families to hide or protect themselves to survive. But what specific events did Jahenny say would trigger this unrest? According to her visions, the Civil War would stem from a combination of factors such as poverty, social injustices, and manipulation by leaders seeking power. These forces would cause the population to rebel against the government, leading to a complete breakdown of social order. The violence, Jahenny predicted, would spread quickly, causing immense suffering and loss of life. She emphasized that this civil war would serve as a warning for humanity to change its behavior or face further destruction. It's a sobering thought that makes us question whether we're already seeing the early stages of this predicted chaos. Perhaps the most shocking aspect of Jahenny's prophecies is the scale of devastation she foresaw. While she didn't provide exact numbers, her visions suggested that only a fraction of humanity would survive the global punishments she predicted. The idea that such a large portion of the world's population could perish is almost unthinkable, yet it underscores the severity of the events Jahenny believed were coming. As terrifying as these predictions are, they serve as a wake-up call. If Jahenny's visions are indeed unfolding, we still have time to change course. Her prophecies weren't just warnings of doom, but calls for humanity to return to faith and moral living. But even as we grapple with the implications of Jahenny's predictions about civil unrest, we must brace ourselves for an even darker period she saw coming for America. What could be more terrifying than the societal breakdown we've explored? The answer lies in Jahenny's most chilling prophecy yet, one that could plunge our nation into a darkness unlike anything we've ever experienced. Imagine a world plunged into total darkness for 3 days straight. No sunlight, no electricity, nothing but pitch black everywhere you look. Sounds like a nightmare, right? Well, according to Marie-Julie Jahenny, it's more than just a bad dream. It's a chilling prophecy that might be closer to reality than we think. And if you're not prepared, the consequences could be fatal. Jahenny's vision of the 3 days of darkness is perhaps her most terrifying prophecy yet. She described a period where the world would be engulfed in complete blackness, a darkness so profound that it would defy our understanding of night and day. But it's not just the absence of light that makes this prophecy so chilling. It's what Jahenny said would happen during those 72 hours. According to Jahenny, the darkness would bring with it a series of apocalyptic events. She saw the earth shaking to its very foundations, with seas rising and roaring waves spreading over continents. The world, she warned, would be turned into a vast cemetery with bodies scattered everywhere. Thunder and lightning would strike with such intensity that it would bring intense fear to even the bravest souls. But here's where it gets even more terrifying. Jahenny warned that simply looking outside during this period could be fatal. She insisted that people should not open their windows, as seeing the dreadful state of the earth would lead to immediate death. It's a warning that sends shivers down your spine, doesn't it? Now, you might be wondering if there's any scientific basis for such an extreme event. While it might sound like something out of a sci-fi movie, there are actually natural phenomena that could potentially cause prolonged darkness. Massive volcanic eruptions, for instance, can inject large amounts of ash and sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere, blocking out sunlight for extended periods. Just look at the eruption of Mount Tambora in 1815, which led to the infamous Year Without a Summer in 1816, causing global temperature drops and widespread crop failures. Another potential cause could be an asteroid impact. A significant collision could throw enough dust and debris into the atmosphere to block out the sun for months. The Chicxulub impact, believed to have contributed to the extinction of the dinosaurs, caused darkness lasting for months and a dramatic drop in global temperatures. But whether you believe in prophecies or not, Jahenny's specific instructions for surviving this event are worth noting. She emphasized the importance of faith during this time, stating that only those who trusted in divine power would survive. Jahenny advised gathering around a crucifix and lighting blessed candles, which she claimed would drive away fear and protect the faithful. Interestingly, Jahenny specified that a single blessed wax candle would be sufficient to illuminate a home during the darkness, and that it would not flicker while burning. In contrast, she warned that in the homes of the wicked and blasphemous, these candles would provide no light at all. The consequences for those who don't heed her warnings are dire, according to Jahenny. She described this period as a time of judgment, where hell would be unleashed upon the earth. The fear and chaos would be so overwhelming that only the faithful would find solace and protection. So, could this terrifying prophecy of 3 days of darkness be just around the corner? It's a question that's hard to answer, but one thing's for sure. Jahenny's track record with other predictions makes it difficult to dismiss this one entirely. From world wars to societal upheavals, many of her visions have shown an uncanny accuracy. But even as we contemplate this chilling prophecy, it's important to remember that Jahenny's visions weren't all doom and gloom. Even in the darkest times, she saw a glimmer of hope. What could possibly follow such a terrifying event? The answer might surprise you, and it could change everything we thought we knew about the future. What if I told you that America's savior is already walking among us? It sounds like something out of a superhero movie, doesn't it? But according to Marie-Julie Jahenny, this isn't fiction, it's prophecy. And the most shocking part? This leader might not be who you expect at all. In her visions, Jahenny spoke of a figure known as the Great Monarch, a leader destined to emerge after a period of great suffering and chaos. This isn't your typical politician or celebrity. Jahenny described a humble individual with a pure heart, someone who would face numerous hardships before being recognized as the leader the world desperately needs. Imagine a ruler so different from what we're used to that it almost seems impossible. Jahenny foresaw a leader filled with love for their people, governing with wisdom and compassion. This great monarch wouldn't just be focused on America, but would have the monumental task of uniting nations, correcting injustices, and restoring true faith to people around the globe. But here's where it gets really interesting. Jahenny's prophecies suggest that this leader won't rise to power through the usual channels. Instead, they'll emerge as a beacon of hope when the world seems at its darkest. It's almost as if the chaos and despair will serve as the backdrop against which this extraordinary individual will shine. Now, you might be wondering if any current political figures fit this description. It's tempting to try and match Jahenny's prophecies to familiar faces, but the truth is, her visions paint a picture of someone quite different from the leaders we see today. This great monarch isn't described as a polished politician or a charismatic public figure, but rather as someone whose strength comes from their faith and their genuine desire to serve others. According to Jahenny, the impact of this leader will be nothing short of revolutionary. She saw the great monarch working alongside a holy pope to bring about a period of peace and spiritual renewal. Together, they would face powerful enemies and overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles, all with divine assistance. But how will we recognize this leader when they appear? Jahenny's visions suggest that the great monarch will be marked by their humility and their ability to inspire hope in even the most desperate situations. They'll likely emerge from unexpected circumstances, possibly even facing initial rejection or misunderstanding before their true role becomes clear. The idea of a divinely appointed leader rising in times of crisis isn't unique to Jahenny's prophecies. Throughout history, various cultures and religions have held beliefs about savior figures emerging to restore order and justice. It's a concept that speaks to our deep-seated need for hope and leadership, especially in turbulent times. So, who is this holy king Jahenny spoke of? Could they be someone alive today, perhaps walking among us unrecognized? It's a tantalizing question, and one that might make you look at the people around you in a new light. The next person you pass on the street could be the leader Jahenny foresaw, quietly preparing for their momentous role. As we consider the possibility of this great monarch, it's important to remember that Jahenny's prophecies weren't just about a single individual. She saw this leader as part of a broader, divine plan, a sign that even after great suffering, hope and renewal are possible. The emergence of the great monarch, according to Jahenny, would be a powerful reminder that light can emerge from even the darkest times. But here's the thing. The great monarch isn't the only divine intervention Jahenny foresaw for our future. In fact, her visions speak of another extraordinary figure who would work alongside this leader to bring about a new era of faith and peace. Who could this other individual be, and how will their role intertwine with that of the great monarch? The answer might surprise you, and it could change everything we thought we knew about the future of our world. You might think you know what a pope looks like, but Jahenny's vision of the future holy leader will shatter your expectations. Could this angelic pope already be walking among us unrecognized? The clues hidden in Jahenny's prophecies might make you look twice at your local priest. Marie-Julie Jahenny's visions didn't just stop at the great monarch. She also foresaw the rise of a holy pope, a spiritual leader chosen by God to guide the Catholic Church through its darkest hours. This wasn't just any religious figure, but an angelic pope who would work hand in hand with the great monarch to restore true faith and Christian morals in a world that had lost its way. But before we dive into the details of this extraordinary leader, let's take a look at the state of the Catholic Church in America today. It's no secret that the Church is facing significant challenges. Attendance at Mass is declining, and traditional values are eroding among many of its followers. This crisis of faith has left many wondering about the future of Catholicism in our rapidly changing society. It's against this backdrop of uncertainty that Jahenny's prophecy of an angelic pope becomes even more intriguing. She saw a time when many would abandon their faith, leading to a weakening of Christian values and morals. This period of apostasy, as she called it, would result in confusion within the Church itself. Some leaders would even question or alter traditional teachings, further adding to the spiritual crisis. But here's where it gets really interesting. Jahenny warned that during this time of confusion, false prophets would arise. These deceptive figures would offer seemingly attractive solutions, leading many astray from the true path of faith. It's a chilling prediction that makes us wonder. How many of today's popular spiritual leaders might fall into this category? So, in a world full of conflicting voices and false guides, how will true believers recognize this holy pope when he appears? Jahenny emphasized the need for discernment among the faithful. This angelic pope won't be marked by flashy miracles or charismatic speeches, but by his unwavering commitment to traditional Catholic teachings and his profound holiness. According to Jahenny, this pope and the great monarch would face enormous challenges. Powerful enemies would try to block their plans at every turn. But here's the kicker. With God's help, they would overcome these obstacles, serving as beacons of light in the midst of darkness. It's a message of hope that reminds us that even in the bleakest times, divine intervention is possible. Now, you might be wondering what all this means for the future of the Catholic Church. Jahenny's visions paint a picture of a dramatic turnaround. Despite the initial period of apostasy and confusion, she saw a time of great spiritual revival on the horizon. Under the guidance of the angelic pope and the great monarch, true faith would be restored and Christian morals would once again take center stage in society. But here's the most surprising part of Jahenny's prophecy. She believed that even during the darkest times, a small group of faithful believers would remain strong. This remnant, as she called them, would continue to pray and keep the flame of love for God alive. They would serve as a beacon of hope for the future, demonstrating that God never abandons his people even when all seems lost. As we consider these prophecies, it's natural to wonder, could this angelic pope already be among us, perhaps preparing for his divine mission? The answer to that question remains a mystery, but one thing is clear. If Jahenny's visions are correct, we're on the cusp of a spiritual revolution that will change the face of Catholicism and indeed the entire world. But before this golden age can dawn, Jahenny warned that America must face its greatest test yet. The challenges we've explored so far, from natural disasters to civil unrest, are just the beginning. What final trial awaits our nation, and how will it shape the course of human history? The answer might shock you, and it's one you won't want to miss. The trials we've discussed are merely a prelude to America's ultimate test. Jahenny's most shocking prophecy reveals a destiny for our nation that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about the end times. What role does America play in humanity's final chapter? The answer is more terrifying and more hopeful than you could ever imagine. Marie-Julie Jahenny's visions of the end times paint a chilling picture of global conflict and spiritual warfare, with America at the center of it all. She foresaw a period of great apostasy, a widespread abandonment of faith that would set the stage for humanity's final battle between good and evil. And according to Jahenny, America's choices in this crucial time could tip the scales for the entire world. Jahenny warned of a coming era when Christian values and morals would be cast aside, replaced by a culture of materialism and self-indulgence. She predicted that people would become increasingly focused on pleasure, money, and power, ignoring the teachings of the church and losing their spiritual path. Sound familiar? Just look at the state of our society today, where traditional values are often mocked and materialism reigns supreme. But it's not just moral decay that Jahenny foresaw. She predicted a time of great civil unrest and anarchy, where people would turn against each other in violent conflict. This wouldn't just be a clash between nations, but a breakdown of order within communities themselves. As we've witnessed increasing political polarization and social unrest in recent years, it's hard not to see echoes of Jahenny's warnings in our current events. Perhaps most alarmingly, Jahenny cautioned about the rise of false prophets during these turbulent times. These deceptive figures would offer seductive solutions to the world's problems, leading many astray with their charismatic speeches and promises of peace. But according to Jahenny, they're true. Nature would be revealed in time as they work to undermine true faith and pave the way for an even darker force. This brings us to one of Jahenny's most terrifying prophecies, the rise of the Antichrist. She warned that in the midst of global chaos and spiritual confusion, a figure would emerge promising peace and unity. This leader would initially seem to offer hope and solutions, but would ultimately lead humanity further from God. The frightening part? Jahenny suggested that many would be deceived by this false Messiah, unable to recognize the true threat until it was too late. So where does America fit into this apocalyptic scenario? According to Jahenny, our nation will face a crucial choice in these end times. As a global superpower and a nation with deep Christian roots, America's decisions could have far-reaching consequences for the entire world. Will we stand firm in our faith and values, or succumb to the deceptions of the Antichrist and his false promise of peace? The stakes couldn't be higher. Jahenny foresaw that those who remained faithful would face severe persecution, while those who abandoned their beliefs might find temporary comfort, but ultimate destruction. It's a sobering thought that forces us to examine our own spiritual preparedness for the challenges ahead. As we look at the world around us, it's hard not to wonder, are we already living in the time of apostasy that Jahenny predicted? The evidence is truly shocking. From the decline in religious affiliation to the erosion of traditional moral values, from increasing global conflicts to the rise of charismatic leaders promising easy solutions, all these signs seem to align eerily well with Jahenny's visions. But here's the thing, even in her darkest prophecies, Jahenny offered a glimmer of hope. She believed that a small group of faithful individuals would remain strong in their beliefs, serving as a beacon of light in the darkness. These steadfast believers would play a crucial role in the final battle, standing firm against the forces of evil and helping to usher in a new era of peace and spiritual renewal. As we stand on the brink of this prophesied final battle, one question remains. Which side will you choose? Will you heed Jahenny's warnings and prepare yourself spiritually for the challenges ahead? Or will you risk being swept away by the deceptions and chaos of the end times? The choice is yours, but remember, according to Jahenny, your decision could impact not just your own fate, but the destiny of our entire nation. Marie-Julie Jahenny's prophecies paint a stark picture of trials ahead, but they also offer a glimmer of hope. She foresaw that after the darkness, a time of renewal and restoration would come. For those who heed her warnings and prepare spiritually, there's a promise of divine protection and ultimate triumph. Jahenny's visions remind us to stay vigilant, watching for signs of moral decay, natural disasters, and societal upheaval. She called for a return to faith and traditional values as a shield against the coming storms. Her message encourages us to cultivate inner strength and community bonds to weather the challenges ahead. As we reflect on Jahenny's prophecies, we're prompted to examine our own spiritual readiness. Are we prepared to stand firm in our beliefs, even in the face of persecution? The choice is ours, but the consequences could shape not just our individual futures, but the destiny of our nation and world.